I wish to be. Oh, this is gonna be great. We were just talking about how I noticed for things for resolution.
Okay, we got everyone? Okay. Meeting called to order in the library of Southwoods Middle School, and it's the work session of the Board of Education at 6:16. Can I have a motion, please? Mr. Greco, seconded by Ms. Kochia and Ms. Falco. All in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, can everyone please stand for the pledge? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Please take a seat. All right, so the board is here tonight to go over some of the goals that we worked on the past few goal setting meetings, and then we have the we're very fortunate to have Dr. McGowan. I'm sorry, I was looking around, not used to this setting, to be our facilitator. And then before we begin, Dr. McGowan has a brief presentation to show everyone. Okay, so
I like how you emphasize brief. I promise you I will. So I've prepared before for you at different times 30, 40 slides and realized 3 slides in that was not necessary. So this is really, I think, a good opportunity to revisit very briefly what you've done and how we've landed at this place. And it actually is, I think, a really simple concept at this point, which is to say, let's talk about where you are relative to the goals that have been drafted. I've received feedback from you, but now I'm presenting to you. Here's what seems to make sense and reflective of your feedback, and then take a little bit more and make adjustments if you'd like to, but really try and move ahead thinking about this in terms of saying, here's where we want to be as a board, as a district, which allows your leaders in the district to have a strategic direction and to be able to formulate their objectives, their work each year, the projects that they are thinking about, the budgeting that they're doing based on these concrete, measurable places. We'd like to get to this place. They are built on your mission vision that are on your website and published throughout the district. Really well-developed materials for a place that has been successful for a long time. So this is really just saying, you're healthy, really healthy and in a good place, but you talk to your physician and the physician says, you're awfully healthy, but it wouldn't be bad if you targeted these 3 or 4 things to really focus your efforts on. So what we did over a period of time is discuss your mission and vision and do some professional development work around that. What does it mean to you, your core fundamental purpose? What does it look like when you're working on those things? What are your values around that? And had some really good discussions. You gave me some feedback on a couple of different occasions, and I was able to provide you some drafts in terms of your goals, most recently digging into that even further. The goals provide us, again, a more focused strategic direction for the district, sort of a measurement tool when you're budgeting, when you're planning projects. Does this align with what the community would like for us? And when I say the community, you representing as board members the interests of the community. It gives staff members clarity when working on initiatives to meet those goals, that these are aligned with what the strategic direction of the district is, and you as board members, guideposts to really maintain focus and measure systematically what's happening in the district. And then the community really gets a clear idea of what is being worked on and why it's being worked on. The first goal is in your area of academic excellence, or academics as it's phrased in your vision. The first proposed goal, it's in front of you. We will provide our students and staff with the structures and resources necessary to create personalized learning experiences. These experiences will balance work and healthy stress, enabling students to discover and exceed their greatest potential. And some of the feedback received was around the idea of including personalization, thinking about artificial intelligence, as a matter of fact, is a very specific way of thinking about technology. Healthy stress versus balance and stress, and some good conversation around that, and the importance of stress, but understanding the balance that is needed as well. In other words, appropriate stress. We discussed Portrait of a Graduate as probably something that could come from this. In other words, the development of a Portrait of a Graduate would be one of those strategic directions or projects that comes out of a goal like this. We discussed evolving technology, a consistent experience from classroom to classroom, instructionally, but more so in terms of assessment and practices in those classrooms. And then discovering potential, kids thinking about what their potential is, discovering their own individual gifts, talents, and potential, and being prepared for life along the way. So those were ideas. That landed us at a draft, a revised draft, that states we will create individualized learning experiences while maintaining comparability in classroom, instructional, and assessment practices. We will utilize and foster mastery of evolving technologies, support an appropriate balance between work and stress, and develop a portrait of a graduate that enables each student to discover their greatest potential and be prepared to contribute to their community. So, do you have questions on that? Is there any feedback that we would like to consider now? Any thoughts you'd like to share when you react to that initially?
Anyone?
I'm sure you don't want us to deal with a grammar and a punctuation issue right now. We could save that for another time.
I think that would be just fine. It's entirely up
I'm
to
not gonna
you.
waste everyone's time for
Comparability,
that.
yeah, it's just mine says consistency and it's comparability up there, so I don't know which is supposed
It's a
to be.
little different, the freedom, it should be, that should be the, this is
Okay.
validated.
So it should be comparability, right? Maintaining comparability.
So let's look at the, we can look at the slide.
Okay, so would you prefer the word comparability or consistency?
Oh, since, just rationale, what was there initially, consistency?
Well, we
Was
went back and
consistency
forth
the-
on the words.
Oh,
actually.
okay, so what was the argument?
Kevin
for
and I
compar-
discussed this a little bit, and comparability is saying that no matter what teacher you get, an A is an A, and the curriculum covers everything that it needs to cover, but it doesn't tie the hands of, if you say consistency of instruction, then you might say every teacher has to teach in exactly the same
Right.
way, and that might be too cookie cutter. So we were trying to
I see.
Kevin and I were batting back and forth words that could say, you want to make sure that there's fairness in terms of the instruction
Right.
from class to class, but not tie teachers' hands to not have their own personalities or their own approaches or their own ways of getting to the standards. So comparability was the word that we came up with for that. Consistency was, a word that came out of some of the feedback that we were getting.
I see.
So we're gonna keep comparability, okay?
Can we, in the end, can we drop each and make it all students? Obviously, first of all, because each is singular and there is plural, so it's not accurate. But we might as well stick to all instead of trying to make the second half of that sentence singular. So it says enables all students to discover their greatest potential.
Sure.
Anyone else on the?
Is it a grammar reason, or is it like a?
The grammar reason led me to the change. So to the substantive change of having it be all. Because obviously you can't say each student to discover their.
No,
So
but,
the idea is drop each now, because I think substantively it sounds better with all anyway.
sure, but at the beginning of the goal, it's talking about individualized learning experiences, which involves an individual and not a collective. So there's a slight, miscomparability between the beginning thought and the end. So, again, I think it's implicit that it's each and every, right? Because it's inclusive of, all is inclusive of each, but the fact that we start individualized, maybe it's each and every is another alternative to consider.
Each and every, yeah.
Each and every. So instead of each
Either
student,
way.
it's gonna be each and every student.
I don't
It's
think
the
that's right.
there that's got you, I got you.
Yeah.
Also, would it be appropriate in this space to incorporate the,
Look at the-
which
The
one? Am I looking
red
at the
box.
right thing?
Yeah, that's fine.
If you get project, this.
Right, so, okay, oh, okay, good, okay. So, is there any way to weave in, as we emphasize, individualized learning, right, to weave in collaborative learning? The word collaborative, somehow, I feel like it's, definitely the word of the day in colleges, for sure.
Could you put it after the word comparability and
So
collaborative?
perhaps as much as we,
I wouldn't put it there.
Sorry, what-
somewhere that makes sense to English major people.
Yeah,
So you'd like
Maybe
the
the
concept
end.
of collaboration there.
in terms of the learning objective,
I wouldn't mix it up with the comparability, because
right, it's a different.
it's a different thought there, so I wouldn't put it there. But maybe,
Foster.
like the greatest potential be prepared to contribute to the community and their ability to collaborate.
Wait, can't you list it in the, we will utilize and foster a mastery of
Yes, I
evolving
think it's-
technologies,
Mm-hmm.
to create a environment of collaborative learning,
Collaborative
support
learning,
across.
yes.
A collaborative
I really, really
environment.
love that. I think it's so important, in today's world.
Or support, or something.
To work
I mean, yeah,
together.
another word for support.
To learn together,
Yeah, that's a good place for it.
having individual strengths, yet, be able to work in a group.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Get along,
Get along, also important.
Pick each other up.
pick each other up.
So incorporating collaboration important in
Incorporate-
this, and then thinking about the structure grammatically of each and every versus there, no problem.
Anyone else? Okay.
Okay, the second goal, in inclusive and engaging culture, climate, character, we will create, the proposed goal originally, we will cultivate safe, inclusive environments where all students can thrive and successfully navigate evolving challenges. And the feedback received was around the idea of creating a kind, safe culture that exemplifies pride, spelling those out, which we have in the updated draft, where all students can thrive, develop a greater understanding of multiple perspectives through their work in the classroom. Wellness, balance, and inclusivity were again part of the conversation, but it was noticed that they were also repeated throughout the goals. So there was a conversation about how to be a little bit more focused in that. The revised draft proposed goal will cultivate a kind, safe, and supportive culture that exemplifies pride, patience, respect, integrity, dignity, and empathy, ensuring all students thrive. Our learning environments will foster wellness, balance, and a deep appreciation for multiple perspectives, empowering students to navigate evolving challenges with confidence and compassion.
Susan?
I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
I just wanted.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lynn.
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to add something about beginning it in kindergarten and making sure that we weave it through the entire environment or something of that nature through 12. Making it really making it a strong culture.
From kindergarten through graduation.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be more of an objective directed at doing something versus what we are doing as a district? I mean, it's more of a question for you.
Can you say that again?
Isn't that more of an, like, if we're directing something that's more of an objective, whereas the goal itself should be inherently district-wide? If we start to say it's district-wide, does that mean other goals, which are clearly these overarching things that are probably happening anyway, are they somehow narrowed? That would be my only point on not wanting to make that change.
And one concern that I would have is if people move in the middle of the year, like not starting in kindergarten, and they feel like, oh, did I miss something?
Well,
By
I
not
just
being
want-
here from kindergarten.
Here, my thought with saying kindergarten is, first, we also leave out the word inclusivity, which probably should be somewhere in there, but if we don't start, whether you move in later or not, that happens often, the culture has to exist from the time you walk into the building. The culture has to be thought of as part of the nature of the school, and it's not tolerated for you to be unkind or mean to other kids. This is not a place where we condone that. It has to be part of their everyday experience that they will practice that, the pride.
That would
So I
start
just,
from the kindergarten.
and you start from the day they walk in, whatever day they walk in.
Right.
And that becomes part of their being when they're in Syosset.
If you started that sentence with the words "from the youngest age" and then went through everything else, does that move us in the direction of where you'd like to see that go?
Yeah.
Still feels like an objective though. At this point, these are goals, so they're no different than our vision statement, and I'm happy that regardless of what they say, but I'm trying to avoid making things be more of a directive Because in my mind, that is really what an objective is about, and telling the district how to operate, not talking about these general goals. But I agree with everything Lynn said, obviously. I just feel it's more of an objective.
I understand what you're saying, I just want it to be so clear that our culture has to be one that exemplifies pride, or exemplifies the things that we talk about, and that it has to be interwoven so tightly in who we are, from the time they walk in till the time they leave, so that that's the people they want to be, and that's what they associate it with.
And
Susan?
also adding on, Lynn just mentioned, adding inclusive in it, so we could also add, which I agree is can't hurt to have, to convulse it kind, safe, inclusive, and supportive cultures, like super easy just to add that right there if everyone likes it. I don't think saying the time period from beginning to end of your days here is such an objective, because it's not giving a specific thing, it's just saying this goal that we're putting out there is for the entire time you're a Syosset student. So it's not specific on, what you should do, it's just saying that this goal is the entire time you're a Syosset student, as opposed to just in the secondary grade, or just in middle school, or, whatever, it's the entire time. It's not giving a specific direction like an objective would.
But shouldn't that be
And that would be in the
applied
first
from
one
the
too,
beginning
right?
anyway?
We
It's
will
cool.
create individual learning experiences. It would be the same thing, we'd have to add it there. And then,
I guess I'm not sure why it's not implicit in that
Because
there's
it's
a.
not going, I just don't think it's as prevalent today as it should be. I don't think it's as part of the culture starting so young as it should be. I think it has to be a bigger part of who we are, that we create a culture that teaches kids how to interact with each other in a much nicer and kinder way. And I think that there are times we're missing the mark on that. So I think that if we start younger and make it the way, and we make it part of the woven tapestry of Syosset, like this is what it is, and everyone walks around understanding that, then it becomes more of the norm and less of the exception. I think that we can work on the culture of kindness and the culture of pride. I think that we have a lot of work to do in that area, and I think that while it might be implicit, us saying it makes it more of an emphasis.
But
But
that's
you-
also why we're doing the goals. Like, we're gonna implement this starting whenever it gets released and whatever. So I'm with you on what you're saying. I think we should give the goal a chance to kind of be out there. I'm okay to add what Dr. Rogers said from the youngest age, is fine with me. But I see where you're coming from with that. It's almost like our goals are, the thought is that these goals are gonna start the whole time that they're here, from the beginning to the end, whether you're here K to 12 or you're here, 8th grade to 12th grade, or 2nd to 4th, like whatever your time period is. So I would say that it is implicit in a way that these are our goals for the district, so no matter what grade you're in, here you go.
but to your point, if the goal says, regardless of what it says, if Lynn or anyone else thinks that something's not happening, or something needs to be improved, that's the point of the objective.
Right.
So what everything you said should absolutely be an objective. And that makes sense, I'm just not
I'm fine with
sure.
wherever anything, I'm just giving ideas, if everyone wants it in
Yeah.
a certain place, that's fine, I just think there are things that are important that need to be included at some point, so wherever they go, that's so be it.
That's a very important point, and then Dr. Rogers, is it possible to, make that, on the top of the objectives, one of the, making K to 12, or whenever the kid enters into our district, and then to build that inclusive culture. And then also in this case,
Sorry, go ahead.
okay, in this case, then would you be okay that we don't, we'll just take from the youngest age, but then we put that into the objectives, still under this, the priority
That's fine.
area too, okay?
That's fun, but including inclusivity can't hurt
Okay.
into the thing, so.
Okay, so we just put in the inclusivity, and what's the other one that you were
We
talking
have
about?
that in the third
It was,
goal, inclusivity.
it was
Yeah.
kind, safe, inclusive, and
I think it's
supportive
in the third.
culture.
Right.
Adding inclusive.
Yeah, we have that in the next one too.
Okay.
All right, so this one, we're good, right?
Yeah, so, and I would just say, Brian, I'm
Oh, ensuring
pretty
inclusive and
protective
collaborative.
of,
Okay.
the management prerogative and the goal, but I don't hear this as directing us in any way with the how. I hear this as directing us with, the what. If we wanna have a place where a kind, warm, generous, inclusive culture is the norm, it's the expectation, and anything that deviates from that is not acceptable or not what we're trying to build.
But that's what it says. I'm
Right.
not saying that's an objective, I'm saying
Right,
that's
so
the
that,
goal.
yeah, that's the
I'm saying
goal.
to add to it, to sort of target different grades, because it may not be happening in a particular grade, becomes an objective.
Right, I didn't see it as objective so much as like an underscore. When you say like from the youngest age, it's almost just to draw a line under it and say, we really mean it.
My point about from the youngest age was more because then we'd have to address the other ones, like the first goal, because it would be the same problem.
Understood, but either way, I think it's our job to come back as an administration, to come back to you and say, okay, if this is your goal, it's up to us to figure out how to achieve that goal for you.
When the goals are posted, wherever they're posted, is there any kind of introduction to it, or does it just say board goals and then list them? Because I'm wondering if we could, to make it apply to all of them, to say something like the expectation is that these goals will apply to children from their first day in Syosset to the time that they graduate, and then that way it will cover all of the goals in one whole thing.
I think we can add whatever we want when it's posted. I
Right.
think we can put, if that's what we wanna do,
Yeah, we can put like
we
a
could
cover
add
letter or something.
right?
Right, just
I
to,
can work on a preamble for you if you
right,
want.
to say these are meant to, and that way it hits everyone's points.
Okay.
At all levels and all programs and all of our children's experiences, right? Like just saying
Right.
comprehensively to Dr. Rogers' point, I like that idea of an underscore. And from the youngest age, I love the phraseology. I would say sometimes that then could give the impression that you're really focused on that being an elementary objective. It almost brings it to that place, but if you say maybe even at all levels or something along those lines, just a thought.
Or from the youngest age until they graduate or something to,
That's like
you know.
implied.
You guys are pretty good with the words, so.
The only other thing before we go on is, Anna, do you think it makes sense to bring your collaboration into the learning environment phrase here and out of the academic one? So in other words, if we had the learning environment fosters collaboration, wellness,
You know,
balance,
Right,
as
no.
we
opposed to
actually
the
have
What
it.
I meant is not now, it doesn't
collaborative
belong in
learning.
as it relates to learning, meaning, in a lab, when you
Right.
work as a group and not kill each other because, I care about my A plus.
Right.
I don't care
And you
about
think that's different from our learning environment?
Just
To learn how to work
simply
together.
for the purpose
Learn
of
to
learning,
become a
not so
colleague.
much
Yeah.
socially and like in a cafeteria and, not be nice to
A
each
team
other.
player.
That's culture, that's, character.
No, I agree.
That's what I meant.
I guess I just don't know why it doesn't fit in our learning environment sentence.
We're gonna have it in the third, so the third goal is gonna pick up
In the
collaborative and inclusivity,
But different, it's a different context.
100%.
And then Ms. Levinson
But maybe we should put
focusing.
some thought into where,
Right.
It's the same words, but different context.
I get that.
And then, to Ms. Leviton's point, and she's talking about in particular the academic environment.
Correct.
Right,
And homework, tests, grades, that environment.
correct. It can't hurt to have it in multiple places to underscore that it's a important
Sure, yeah.
theme of what we're looking for.
So are we all good with the second one?
Okay, look at us moving along.
The third goal is first drafted, we will communicate effectively with our external stakeholders, focusing on creating an inclusive school community where every child feels valued and has a sense of belonging. And then the feedback received was really around the idea of connecting with all families as well. It wasn't just this idea of external stakeholders. It was a little bit of a, almost like a distant or a clinical or a term that wasn't as warm, I think. Developing deeper connections for all, everyone was the concept. We're trying to communicate with everybody, staff as well. And that's where collaborative came up, again, the idea of internal communication as well. Where we landed, in terms of drafting this for you, we will foster strong, meaningful connections with all families and stakeholders. So all, and pointing out families. Ensuring an inclusive and collaborative school community where every child feels valued and has a true sense of belonging. Through effective communication and deeper engagement, we will strengthen relationships among students, staff, families, and the broader community, ensuring that everyone feels heard, supported, and invested in our shared success.
So I have one comment on this. I think this is great. where it says, because we did have a conversation about how we wanted to focus on the whole community, meaning everybody involved, that's why that changed. But where it says collaborative school community where every child, I almost feel like child needs to be person. Because this goal is focused on everybody feeling valued and having a true sense of belonging. So whether you're a community member, you're a teacher, you're an administrator, you're, whatever your role is within this community, this is how we want our community to be. So in my opinion, child should be person, but I don't know what everybody else thinks.
I think
But I
that's a
love
great
it.
point.
Or
I
go
think
with
that's a great
everyone
point,
instead
yeah.
of
Right, just,
The learning community.
everyone feels valued.
Well,
That's
particularly
great.
because this was about a connected community, and we did talk a lot about, you know, it's everybody, it's families, it's stakeholders, it's internal, so where every person feels valued and has a true sense of belonging, that makes a lot of sense.
Anyone else?
Can I compliment you? You did a great job, by the way, of distilling
yes,
all these
yes.
random things
Yeah.
you hear, our mission statement, our value statement,
Thank you.
and then throwing it into in gold. It's making our night a lot easier.
Okay, Mr. Bartolo?
So I know we're gonna have more goals under, but maybe we should think about like how we're valuing students. So are we valuing students because you take 5 APs, so I'm gonna value you more than the student that has different skills? So, that's something I think we should think about as a board, is how are we valuing it? Are you valuing it because the teachers, you're easy in class and maybe you have other artistic skills? So I think we have to really think how we're valuing students.
I think that's a great point, and you're right when you mentioned that maybe then comes in under the objectives when you start to measure this and think about, okay, then how exactly are we going to get at this?
All right, are we all good? With number 3? Okay.
So can I just add one thing? The repetitive word point, I just wonder, and I don't have better words, but I wonder when we reuse a word like collaborative, is there a better word to use here? Because I think Anna's point is the word works. I don't like being repetitive just to be repetitive.
Right.
Using inclusivity or inclusive, using collaborative. It's a wonderful website called, I think, synonyms.com. Like, there's so many great words we could really use, so we are not repetitive.
So
Just, I wanna throw it out there, I didn't actually go
What
to
I hear you saying is
synonyms.com.
you wanna reserve the word collaborative in the sense that Anna uses
Because
it.
I think it's better for
Yeah.
her purpose.
Right.
Here, I think there's 10 words we can use to make the exact same point, so why not use it?
Right, so if we reserve that word, we will all know, we as a staff will know when we say that, we mean it in the academic sense.
Do you wanna do that for inclusive too, or you like inclusive there?
I don't know if inclusive has as many uses.
I mean, I'm okay with
as
using it, I'm
More
just
general.
asking.
I think inclusive is more general.
But I think collaborative, in this sense, there's a lot.
Well, and you're using inclusive more similarly in both than
Right.
collaborative.
And I think inclusivity in this is important as
Mhm.
well as the previous one.
Yeah, no, I'm good with that, I was just asking.
Okay, all right.
Okay. And your fourth goal, transparent and efficient operations. The original draft, we will ensure that our facilities adequately support an excellent education for our students and provide enriching experiences for our community members. Feedback received was really around the need to reference fiscal operations and responsibility and a longer-term plan sustainability, right? That you're undertaking a lot of work right now, but what about the long term? Let's not put ourselves in a position where we're not taking care of these assets for the long term, and be prepared for that. The revised draft, we will ensure that our facilities effectively support an excellent education for our students and provide enriching experiences for our community, all while maintaining fiscal responsibility and sustainability. Through thoughtful planning and long-term investment, we will create and maintain safe, innovative, and adaptable spaces that meet the evolving needs of our students and community for years to come.
Anyone has anything to add to it? Any feedback on this one?
I think you did fabulous.
Yeah,
You
I
really,
agree.
you took every bit of feedback and literally phrased everything, and this is great.
Thank
Very exciting.
We're gonna have you back.
Yeah.
You know,
I enjoyed it, and you pushed my thinking, though I really enjoyed the feedback received and thinking differently about each of these, which I'll take the feedback from the other ones, and I like that notion of collaboration and specifically how that's used in academic excellence. Think about that a little bit differently. But you've given me some good feedback to put some finishing touches on too, so thank you.
That's great. All right, so thank you again,
My
Dr.
pleasure.
McGowan, for all your work behind the scene. This is great. It really saves a lot of time, and you really put together. You really all these revised draft proposals reflected all our conversations, hours and hours of conversation into 4 short paragraphs. So this is excellent. So thank you so much. And then now that we have these revised draft proposed goals in all different areas, and Dr. Rogers, within each of these priority areas, would you be able to work with the leadership team to develop a targeted plan to guide these actions, and then each of these action steps will outline the strategy and priorities, to reach a specific objective. For example, Ms. Edwinson brought up that point from K to 12, and then put that as an objective, and then also Mr. Rotolo brought up something about this, the more welcoming, more inclusive environment out of that. So in each of these areas, have that objective, and then for the board to consider in the future.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, we have a number of members of the administrative team here tonight. I think it's undoubtedly helpful for them to hear your discussion and the sense of priority that you place on a lot of these things. So what I would propose is exactly what you suggested. Give us some time to now take these, discuss them as a staff, and I'll need their expertise, the building principals and the leaders in the district, to put together some ideas for how we can start to work on these objectives. And I liked your phrase, we're not bad, but there are things that we could be doing to be better. And this directs us in where our priorities are going to be for the things to work on next. So that will help me engage the team here in what our next work is. And then, what I propose is, give us a little bit of time to do that, and then come back to you with a first draft maybe of some strategic objectives for each of these goals that you would react to as a board, and give us feedback on how our first draft is.
Okay, good. Mr.
I see it slightly different. Is there a way that, when you're gonna talk to your administrative staff, of course, your principals, but I mean, there should be some staff, there should be, maybe it's just PTA council, maybe just ask the question, where are your priorities? Just so we can sort of see what everyone says, and I don't know the most effective way to do that. I'm sure you can come up with an effective way where you can just give us the information so we can start to set what we see are the priorities based on what you're hearing and what you're seeing. Because obviously we could all come up with that right now, but that's not effective. We need to know what the administration, and we need to know what people are thinking. And I just, again, you've used things like thought exchange before, that probably won't be effective or something like this. There must be some way that you can come up with where you could really have people come in, give you the information, and you could just sort of download it on us to start making these decisions.
Yeah, I mean, I think you were saying that in a nicer way than I would have, which is, we just, got through having a discussion about a goal about collaboration with all the stakeholders. I don't want to narrow the collection of information and priority setting to just the administration. There's a bunch of other stakeholders, internal and external, who I want to hear from, and I want to hear from them directly. I don't want to hear it, I want to hear a ton of information in terms of where are the areas that folks see as high priority or most important from their point of view. I don't want it to come solely from the administrative lens. Our job is to balance the interests and views of a lot of different groups, and I want to hear from a lot of different groups.
I think reaching out to the council is a good start.
I actually would love to hear from the students too, and not just the super involved students, but the general population of students, to see what kind of improvements they'd like to see in their environment, since a lot of what we're doing is to make their experience better. I would kind of love to see where they, in an open-ended way, not putting anything in their head, but what things they feel we could improve on to make their experience happier, more enriching, more successful.
I mean, we do have a goal that talks about reaching out to lots of different stakeholders for the purpose of doing this, so we might as well use that goal and that concept.
Yeah,
to get as
I just
much
want to include the
information as we
students.
can. Totally agree, but, I mean, I don't think we should make a list of who to go to, I think we should.
No, I'm just, among the list, I think
Yeah,
the
and
student should be
I
there.
don't think there should be like a strategic plan, 18-month review of thought exchanges and
No.
thousands of hours of whatever. I mean, I feel like this is a relatively short-term, shouldn't take more than a couple of weeks or months to be able to gather the feedback from a bunch of sources. I mean, if it's a Google form or whatever, you can figure it out. But
So we'll let Dr. Rogers figure it out, work with the team, internal and external, and bring it back to the board.
Yeah,
I
I'd love
think
to,
if we leave the students anonymous, it'd probably be better also.
agreed.
I mean, we can make it, I'm not really worried about who says it, but I wanna see.
No, I'm just saying,
comments,
if
so
you
we
want
can-
if you want students to answer honestly, making it anonymous will help aid in that.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah. Anyone else?
I mean, you got this pro right here that could give you some advice on the best way to get information.
yeah, what have you seen other
Is
folks
it
do
typically
in
done?
short order?
And when you wanna do something quick, when we wanna turn around objectives in months, not years.
I think Tom could bet his mortgage payment on what he knows I'm about to say. But, I do think thought exchange is the way to get that feedback very quickly, and I think it provides anonymity, it provides a space that, I always like to say, makes space for the quiet ones. I often remark that in a space like this, my wife, who has far more to offer than I, is funnier, nicer, and more enjoyable, would not likely put her hand up, and her feedback is really valuable. So if you give people that space and that opportunity, it is a vulnerable space to be in, but I also find that people actually tend to handle that better than when they have their name attached to a comment on social media, because they get something out of having the like or the click or the response, but the exchange gives you a chance to really gather a lot of feedback from groups, and people can see what other people think, which I also think is important. The analysis is in the hands of the people that are doing it.
Okay, Ms. Bellhoob and then Ms. Levitan.
I don't know if this is, you guys may hate this suggestion, you may go not like it, but I would love, just to what you said, like with your wife who's a little quieter and whatever, I think that there are a lot of kids who probably aren't gonna volunteer their information. I don't know if it's, especially if thought exchange is so easy and simple, if like in the high school English class, everybody has to take 3 minutes and, have an opportunity to write something and just do it. English, social studies, something that everybody takes, and just take 5 minutes or 3 minutes out of the class and just say, we're doing this thing, we wanna improve the school, write something that is important to you, or take time, and do it that way, and it could be, a couple day exercise so they have a chance to respond to what other people write, or however you guys wanna do it, but I would love to get a wider, cause I think some of the kids who may have the most insightful information might be the least likely to volunteer what they're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, one of the difficulties though is, I'm sorry, I slipped over, I apologize.
Ms. Levitan.
Was
and
it
then
the
we can-
piggybacking on what Susan is saying? My only reservation here, not a reservation, I mean, it's an excellent idea, and I agree 100% that anonymity is key. However, on platforms such as Thought Exchange, as I know for a fact, people create, 10 different names, and let's say hypothetically an angry student will post, anonymously, a complaint or whatever, concern or outrage or, everything is awful, inside it and post it 10 times under different names. How do we know, how do we protect ourselves from unnecessary, bombardments of.
And can fourth graders use thought exchange?
You mind if I weigh in? I would say, I don't know, and I was a second grade teacher and I loved the kids that I taught, and I was a primary principal. I'm not sure that primary level feedback is as important in this. I think you could have, within these goals somewhere at some point, some way to measure young kids and their perceptions of school, and there's other ways to get at that, but in terms of gathering more feedback from more stakeholders in a rapid, sort of more comprehensive way, an exchange or some other vehicle, right? It doesn't have to be just thought exchange, but I don't know, to your point, that fourth graders are getting the best feedback. In fact, I say even as a parent of a middle schooler and 2 former middle schoolers, I wouldn't ask middle school kids either. I would really focus on juniors, seniors, maybe all high school kids. That
No, I really disagree. I wholly disagree.
Okay.
Sorry. I wholly disagree, because I think that there's a lot of things that go on, especially in middle school, that we need to address in middle school. And preparation for high school and preparation coming in, even if you start 5th grade and up, I think there's a lot to be said of I wouldn't discount them. at all. Because I think their experience of moving up and their experience of where they were will help enormously in transitions and understanding the culture and understanding the academics and how the expectations from one grade to another. I think that we need to include
Yeah,
that.
so maybe it's not thought exchange for students, maybe it's just direct feedback from students or
Yeah,
parents.
literally
of-
old fashioned.
That's what I was
Piece of
getting at.
paper, like in the class, I know it's like crazy and inefficient, but it's almost like, how do we foolproof, you know, how do we protect ourselves from like painting a picture, like it's an issue is so widespread and predominant when it's like it could be spread by one person or two people or.
If they
No, I
do
like
it
the
in
English
gym, if
class.
they do it in gym, if they like gym, they all go to gym, everyone takes out a Chromebook, they fill it out once, they're done. You're not gonna
Right.
get 10 from the same kid.
Right,
You're gonna get one kid's
That's the
experience
only way to
once.
ensure that, yeah, I would rather, for the kids, I would rather go that route.
I think there's two things. I don't think you're wrong. I don't know that I was explaining myself well. In terms of a comprehensive thought exchange, we're gathering feedback from a lot of different groups of people with all of their feedback in that space at the same time and people evaluating it. My experience has been that middle schoolers don't always offer necessarily the best feedback in that space when they're mixed with everybody else. What I do think is important, though, to that example of you find other ways to gather feedback from younger kids. Middle school kids, for example, I would maybe put them in focus groups. I would have them talk through certain classes, and I would do some survey work as well. I think there's just different vehicles. I do think their feedback is valuable. I was using the tool as an example of a place that their feedback has not always been great. To the point of the 10 people, what's interesting about that is in Thought Exchange, for example, if 10 people sign up and or one person signs up with 10 different accounts, and they'd have to go to 10 different devices with 10 different ISP addresses. Right, and they may.
That's the scary part.
But even if their comment was the same, what's interesting
And they'll
about
tell
that
you
is
about it too, that's the most fascinating.
in an exchange, if you get 20 comments that are negative and they're similarly negative about the same topic, it really doesn't matter if you have 20 of those comments or 30 of them or 10 of them, it's the rating of those comments. Now, they could do the same thing, those 10 different accounts, they could rate those comments high. What I see happen more often is over the period of an exchange, when you get more and more people in, it tends to balance out and starts to mitigate some of the ways that people try to manipulate exchanges. Just because the way their algorithm works and over time that Bayesian average they come up with tends to filter some of that out. But it's a fair point that somebody could try and manipulate that too. It'd have to go to a lot of effort.
Ms. Buckle?
Yeah, I think it would probably be okay. I think that they probably, it's a lot of work, and I think they would inherently not want to put that much work in, like the high school students to keep doing it, especially if it's a limited time and they don't have such an extended period of time to do it. In terms of middle schoolers, the focus groups I think are great, but I don't know how successful they would be. Like, I don't know if kids are going to volunteer things that they're struggling with, especially in middle school. It's such a hard time, and I don't know if they would feel comfortable, because then you don't have any anonymity. You know, you're putting yourself out there, and I feel like
They would not
that's
talk.
very hard for that age group.
They would
One
call
way
up.
to get at it actually though is to do then, that's a great point, to do separate exchanges. So you do an exchange with your community, your staff, adults in one
Yes.
space, and then you do an exchange, maybe with high school kids, because their feedback will be distinct and different from middle school kids. And then middle school feedback.
Yes,
and,
I agree.
And then you can evaluate it based on the levels that it's coming from and the particular ways that
And they're
those
separated.
developmental levels get added.
And to be honest, I think that you're gonna have different perspectives, and I think there's gonna be, it will kind of make it easier to see what's important to which groups. I don't think that the things that are important to middle schoolers or important to the high schoolers will necessarily be the same thing the parents are concerned about, you know, or that the staff, I think people are gonna have very different viewpoints, and they're gonna be coming from very different places. So if you do separate thought exchanges, it might actually, you know, kind of help you, you know, focus on what's most important to which group, as opposed to getting it all, you know, mixed up together.
We're probably going down the road where this is gonna become a very long process. So what I would recommend is letting Dr. Rogers sort of give us
Yeah.
to do the work to get as much information as you can. Share the information, tell us where you got it from. And then we could start from there. And then if we start to feel like it's not enough info, we need to go out to other sources, maybe we take that step and kick that can down the road, but I don't want this to turn into the 2 to 3 year process, which it easily can turn into.
No,
So,
it needs to be quick. We
no
need
more
to,
advice.
we need to move this along.
Right, I don't think
Whenever
it's
you
a,
ask
I don't think it's a strategic plan review, but I do think it's a short-term feedback review. And the other element that I sort of wanna emphasize is, I kinda don't want the data filtered. I want individual responses to come to us, as opposed to someone collecting it for us, summarizing it, and telling it to us. I wanna see it raw, because I want each person to have the ability to direct their own personal feedback and view at us. I don't want it summarized, concluded, consulted, anything like that. I want everyone to have the anonymity to report whatever it is that they think is important.
I think we can do both. I think it's absolutely important for us to have this distilled in a way so we understand what are really the high level important factors that we're gonna use in making an objective. And at the same time, we could also have raw data. But I do still think it's important to have some kind of summary of what we're getting.
It's fine, we can
and
have it.
where it came from, because
And sorting.
Then I don't mind have the summary and sorting at the end, but I don't want the summary and the sorting before the end, after everyone gets a chance to have their own individual views represented.
It could come separately.
We
Here's
can
the
have two
summary
sets.
and here's the raw, and then you
But
can
doesn't
read what
it
you want
kinda
first.
come summarized using thought exchange, because
It
then if
kinda
I
does.
like, oh, I like what Jack, I keep clicking it, you go up on, so it kind of self-filters itself.
Yes, the algo does, but the point is that.
No, I agree, but I'm just saying, it does filter.
Totally agree with you.
Yeah, you're kinda gonna get a summary.
As long as the universe of people responding is large enough that they can remain anonymous, okay? So if there's a category of
Student.
third grade teachers, right? It's very difficult for that group to remain anonymous. If there's a category of central administration, it's very difficult for that category to remain anonymous in the thought exchange. Parents, it's easy, right? Students, it's easier, right? Teachers, it's easy, or staff, right? But what I don't want is the inability for any individual to not be able to anonymously send their feedback to us, even if it's summarized at the end. I don't want anything curated before it gets summarized at the end in a way that people can't report anonymously what they think.
Okay, all right. I see Dr. Rogers taking a lot of notes, so, other comments?
Can I just make
Go ahead.
a statement? Just because there are a lot of administrators who weren't here when we were talking about certain words that got incorporated in here, and do you mind changing the slides to priority area 2? There is a word that we added, multiple perspectives, and just wanted to give you background story of why we put that there. Jack, I'm a slow reader, I only got to chapter 3, but this kind of explained, this book kind of explained it well. Some children in this school district didn't feel like they had any answer, and they had narrowed down their perspective to one. And that's where it's coming from, that we can equip our students to see the multiple perspective, not just one that they came up with, and that's the only thing that they see, but they'll be able to see broader perspective.
are you ready to? Are we ready?
Yes. Okay. Great. Thank you so much. Thank you. This is gonna be a lot of work for Dr. Rogers and the team to do, but this is great stuff. And then, we look forward to getting the feedback from the leadership team. Okay. All right. And thank you again, Dr. McGowan,
It's my
for
pleasure.
all your work.
Really, really enjoyed being with you.